Well, hello everyone and welcome to our new topic on transport in plants. If you look out the window, you're likely to see many trees, especially in our beautiful Singapore. And these trees come in various shapes and sizes. Some are really tall and some are really short. And most are covered with a layer of bark. When you look at a tree, it doesn't look like it's doing much. But don't let them deceive you. Because under that layer of hardened bark, there is so much happening. Substances, water, nutrients are being moved up and down the plant from point A to point B, from the roots to the leaves, from the leaves to the roots. There is movement. Underneath the bark, there are transport systems that transport substances throughout the plant, ensuring that every part of the plant gets what it needs to survive. So that's what this whole chapter is going to be about, transport in plants. We're going to be talking about transport system in plants. Just like Singapore has a transport system, buses and MRTs, to take you from one place to another place. So plants have transport systems to carry and to move their substances around themselves. It's fascinating. Now, when it comes to transporting substances, human beings have blood and blood vessels. Blood moves through blood vessels and helps transport substances from one place to another place. Well, plants don't have blood vessels. But they do have vessels of their own. And these vessels are called xylem and phloem, which I'm sure you've heard about already in your lower sec before. So xylem and phloem vessels help to transport substances in plants. And while they're both vessels, they both transport different types of substances. As this little comic strip would tell you. This is phloem. I'm getting fat from all the sugar in me. Phloem transports sugars and other manufactured food products. But of course, xylem comes along and says, you should take in more water and mineral salts like me. Of course, we know that xylem carries water and mineral salts. Poor phloem, of course, can never be as slim as xylem, but that's fine. They both play very important roles in the plant. So the xylem transports water and mineral salts, while the phloem transports manufactured food substances. For example, sugars like sucrose, which you saw in the last lesson, and amino acids. All these are transported by the phloem. Now, the xylem normally transports water and mineral salts from the roots upward to the rest of the plant, while the phloem normally transports manufactured food substances from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, when there are storage organs like potatoes, underground stems, then sometimes transport can be from, underground stems like the potato upward to the other parts of the plant. I don't know if you thought about this before, but if xylem carries water but the phloem carries nutrients, and phloem rhymes with flow, and water flows, then why doesn't the phloem carry water? I don't know how scientists come up with such strange terms like phloem anyway, but just remember xylem is water and phloem is manufactured food products, even though sometimes the names just don't make sense. So in this video, we're going to be learning how to label the xylem and phloem in the stem and in the root. Okay, when we see the stem and root, where's the xylem and phloem? Secondly, we're going to talk about the structure of the xylem and phloem and how they are adapted for their functions. Important! Structure and function. How is the structure of the xylem and phloem related to their function? Alright, the textbook pages, you're going to find it, it's found in your textbook in the chapter Transport in Plants. So first, we're going to look at the cross-section of a stem. Now, if I have a growing plant and I cut the stem this way, as you can see in the picture, this is a cross-section, alright? Or sometimes called a transverse section. Now here on this screen, you see 4 different cross sections of 4 different stems. Pause the video for a while and observe. Tell me which one is the odd one out. Well, hopefully you identified this as the odd one out, right? The other 3 cross sections seem to have something in common, and that's that they have some ring arrangement, a ring-like arrangement of something. So on the next slide, we'll see exactly what that is. So it turns out that those 3 stems which have something in common are taken from dicotyledonous plants or dicot plants. And in dicot plants, when you cut their stem, what you will see is vascular bundles arranged in a ring, right? So each of this here is a vascular bundle. And the vascular bundles are arranged in a ring. Okay, in your textbook, you'll see it drawn in this way. So the vascular bundles arranged in a ring. Now this only happens in dicot plants. In the last video, I mentioned that there are other plants called monocot plants. Now in monocot plants, the vascular bundles are just arranged all over the place, right? Not in a ring, but just a bit messily all over the place. And that was this stem. This stem comes from a monocot plant. Okay, while the others all come from dicots. Now, you really don't need to know these terms. Okay, but I just to let you all be familiar that in our syllabus, we're only focusing on dicot plants. Okay, so just focus on dicots where the vascular bundles are arranged in a ring. Now at this point, I want you to do some work of your own. I want you to flip to this page of your textbook for the pure biology students, and I want you to label the parts of the cross-section of the stem. Alright, look at the diagram and label the parts based on your textbook. And I'll explain it once you guys come back. Take about 5 minutes to read that page on your textbook. Right, hopefully you're done with the labeling from your textbook. So what you should have got is that the outer layer is called the epidermis. Right, much like the epidermis in our skin, okay, the outer layer of the stem is called the epidermis. It protects the rest of the stem. Now, inside the epidermis, the next layer of tissue called the cortex, and finally the inner center part of the stem is called the pith. Right, the pith. Now let's focus in on the vascular bundle because this really is the main part that you guys need to know well. On the outside of the vascular bundle here, this is the phloem. Alright, so the phloem is the one that is nearer the outside of the stem. And then next, we have the cambium. And finally, on the inner side of the vascular bundle, we have the xylem. Okay, so this is the xylem, and this is the phloem. So phloem on the outside, xylem on the inside. Now, what is the cambium? Okay, this is just a bit of additional info. The cambium, they're actually a kind of stem cell. And if you remember what stem cells are cells that have not differentiated into other cells. So this cambium is basically a stem cell that can differentiate and give rise to new xylem and phloem. So as the plant grows, you can imagine that the cambium will keep producing new xylem and new phloem, new xylem and new phloem, and this part will actually just expand outwards. Right, that's how plants grow. So the main thing, if you didn't get that, the main thing I need to get from this slide is the phloem and the xylem, okay? You need to know that phloem is on the outside and xylem is on the inside when it comes to the stem. Okay, so sometimes you'll be also asked to label real microscope images, not just cartoons. So in this image, very similarly, the outer layer is called the epidermis. Right, then the epidermis, after that is the cortex, right, which is inside the epidermis, below the epidermis. Then let's look at our vascular bundle. Okay, the outside part of the vascular bundle is the phloem, then the middle is the cambium, and the inside part is the xylem. And the xylem looks very, very obvious as well, because you can see that the walls of the xylem are very thickened. They're thickened with lignin, right? Can you see that? They look very thick and large. Now finally in the middle we have our pith. Okay? So we're going to move on now to talk about the cross-section of a root. So if this is a plant, and this is a root, if I cut the root this way, with a knife down, I'll be able to see the cross-section. So if I pluck out the root, it'll probably look something like this, right? Like this, right? Because I've cut it here, and it has been disconnected. And you'll be able to see the cross-section of the root. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this part on the next slide. So I want you to observe again, pause at this point, and tell me which is the odd one out. Now hopefully it's quite obvious that the odd one out is this one, right? And this cross-section of the root, right, this comes from a monocot root. So you will not need to know this for your syllabus. The other three come from dicot plants. This is the one that you need to know. And what you will see in common is that they all seem to have this X-shaped arrangement in the middle of the root, in the center of the root. And this is going to be important, as we will see on the next slide. So it turns out that in dicot roots, the xylem and phloem are found right in the center, and they alternate with one another. So what do I mean by alternate? Here is the xylem, then followed by the phloem, then followed by the xylem, then followed by the phloem, then followed by the xylem, then followed by the... Okay, you get it, right? They're alternating in like a wheel shape, and they are found in the center. Alright, it's textbook reading time again. So pick up your textbook, page 177. I want you to read it and label the parts of the cross-section of the root based on your textbook. And also read up a bit more about each of the parts. Alright, so you should have got these answers from your textbook. The outer layer of the root is called the epidermis, again, the root epidermis. Now your textbook also calls it the piliferous layer. Okay, and that's because there are many of these root hairs. Okay, the epidermis is made up of root hair cells. So you can see, like, for example, here is one root hair cell. And all the root hair cells come together to form the epidermis. Okay, the inside part of the epidermis, again, this is called the cortex. Right? And now next layer over here, this is actually called the endodermis. Okay, it's not very important in our syllabus, but just to be aware that there's this term called endodermis. Now what's most important is this center part. Now what you see in the center part is right in the center of the root. This is the xylem, right? And the spaces around the xylem, this is the phloem, right? So that's the arrangement of xylem and phloem in the root. So you need to be very familiar with how it's arranged. Once again, sometimes you'll be given real life diagrams, so it's not too difficult, right? The outer layer, epidermis, then the cortex, then the endodermis, and then you got the xylem right in the center. Again, the xylem looks very distinct with its thick lignified walls, right? Lignified walls. And then, of course, around the xylem, we have the phloem. Alright, so that's all for this video. In our next video, we'll be talking about how the xylem and phloem are adapted for their functions. Alright, but you do need to know from this video, the key thing is if I give you a diagram, let's say of the stem, right? I'm drawing a stem now, and I show you the vascular bundles arranged, and I ask you, which is the xylem, which is the phloem, you need to know. Alright, and if I give you a diagram of the root, let's give you a diagram of the root. And if I ask you which is the xylem, which is the phloem, you need to be able to tell me. Alright, that's the key thing. Alright, see you there in the next video.